If this story moved you, if you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or had your hard work claimed by someone else, you're not alone. This channel is dedicated to telling powerful stories of resilience, truth, and quiet strength. We shine a light on those who were told they didn't matter until they proved otherwise. If you believe in justice, in second chances, and in reclaiming what's rightfully yours, then this is your space too. Don't miss the next chapter. Click subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Like this video if it resonated with you and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us your story. Because your voice matters. Your experience matters. And together, we're building something no one can erase. Welcome to the community. There's a particular kind of stillness that comes just before applause. Tense, weightless, like the breath before a break. That's the silence I stood in when they called her name. Denise Holloway, Chief Innovation Officer at Orion Healthcare Systems, walked onto the stage at the Boston Global MedTech Summit to accept the Vanguard Advancement Award. She smoothed her blazer like a seasoned diplomat, flashed a polished smile for the press, and positioned herself beneath a towering LED screen showcasing our flagship breakthrough. The Pulse Sync Neural Interface, my invention. Applause erupted like a wave crashing on cue. I stood quietly near the rear of the hall, out of the camera's path. My name badge still read Lead Firmware Analyst. These days, I mostly patch software I'd built from scratch 7 years ago. Not that anyone cared to remember. As the announcer celebrated Denise's groundbreaking vision and technical prowess, the screen shifted to a schematic overlay. My blueprint, I knew it by heart. In the bottom corner, faint but still visible, was my original note in red Sharpie: stabilize wave interference pre-output. Validate only in live telemetry conditions. I had written that while sitting in a folding chair beside my father's hospice bed in Cedar Ridge Medical Center. He passed away the following afternoon. That sketch, scribbled on the back of a patient transfer form, was the last thing he ever saw me working on. Now it floated behind Denise as if it had always belonged to her. She began speaking, poised, elegant, rehearsed. This technology wasn't just engineered, it was envisioned. Envisioned through leadership, through strategy. Leadership. Strategy. Not one word about the lab breakdowns. The crashes. The countless nights I reprogrammed the feedback loop to stop it from overriding ICU monitors. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just listened to a woman praise everyone but the one who made her crown sit straight. The video shifted to a promotional clip. Denise's voice echoed over scenes of emergency rooms using Pulse Sync. True innovation, she said, doesn't begin in the lab. It begins with vision. I exhaled quietly. That was when I understood. They had taken the credit, the glory, the recognition, but not the silence I still held. Some betrayals don't scream. They seep in slow, like a rising flood under a locked door. Weeks later, I stood just inside Denise's office, quarterly performance report in hand. My department led Orion in system reliability, deployment speed, and zero failure rollouts, 5 quarters running. I didn't want applause. I wanted acknowledgement. A raise. Something. Denise didn't look up as I stepped in. She was scrolling through Teams on her phone. Carmen, she said, good timing. I was just reading feedback on your last release. Really solid work. Thank you, I said evenly. Actually, I wanted to discuss compensation. That caught her attention. She finally looked up, lips pursing slightly. A raise, she repeated, leaning back. Walk me through your reasoning. I didn't hesitate. It's been 7 years. I've exceeded every benchmark since year 2. I'd overseen cross-departmental rollouts, mentored every new developer, and maintained the platform's integrity through 3 major audits. The infrastructure they depended on every day? Still built on my original architecture. He nodded with the slow, measured expression of someone about to give a polite dismissal. Nora, your technical output is undeniable. Everyone respects your contributions. I didn't speak. I knew what was coming. And there it was right on cue. But promotions at this tier are about vision, influence, he said, folding his hands. About executive-level foresight. My jaw stiffened. 7 years of delivering scalable systems and resolving risk before it hits production isn't foresight? Grant smiled, as if trying to let me down gently. That's execution. That's precision. And yes, it's vital. But strategy, Nora. Strategy's different. I didn't return the smile. He stood and grabbed his espresso. You're indispensable. But not everyone's meant to shape the direction. Some people keep the engine running. That's you. There was no next step offered. No path upward. Just a kind-sounding no. I walked out without another word. At my workstation, I connected my external drive. I needed something, anything, that still felt like it belonged to me alone. As I navigated through project folders, a title caught my eye. A document I hadn't touched in nearly 6 years. LoadSync Prototype V1, Final Patent Draft. I clicked it on reflex and froze mid-scroll. Filed April 8, 2019. Inventor, Nora J. Winslow. Ownership, individual. It hit me all at once. That long weekend at Harborview Medical, the last one I spent by my father's bedside. He'd passed early Monday. I remembered now I'd filed it from the waiting room. They hadn't taken that. Not yet. Strange what memory preserves. Not the sermon, not the guests, not even the cold sting of hand sanitizer in the hospice halls. No. What I recalled was kneeling on my hardwood floor at 2:30 a.m., skin tight from tears, laptop propped on a box of legal pads, trying to breathe through the fog. I wasn't working, I was surviving. Grief had hollowed the apartment, made every sound echo. I'd opened that patent draft I'd spent months refining, the blueprint of what would evolve into Orion's central integration engine. It wasn't complete. It was raw, stitched together from scribbled margins and sleepless nights. But it was mine. And I'd filed it, not under Orion's name, but my own. Nora J. Winslow, independent filer. I remember hesitating on that field, wondering if it even counted. I hit submit at 2:46 a.m. A soft ding confirmed it. For the first time since Dad's decline, I breathed. I hadn't saved him. I couldn't. But I had claimed one piece of my life before everything unraveled. Now, staring at that PDF years later, it all came rushing back. The filing number, the timestamp, my signature, my name. I opened Orion's internal IP registry. My pulse ticked faster. I searched by the doc number, then by filing date, then keywords. Nothing. No listing. No reassignment record. No mention in company assets. I leaned back slowly. They didn't know. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something sharp and clear rising inside me, not rage, not grief, but power. This piece of the puzzle, it was still mine. There wasn't a single clause tying it to Orion Systems. They had reaped the credit, the profits, and the spotlight, but the legal rights? They'd never touched those. I stared at the file, time-stamped and untouched. It wasn't triumph. Not yet. It felt like a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. A quiet confirmation, you're still here. And for the first time in what felt like years, I believed that mattered. I didn't storm out. I didn't rant on forums or pour it all out to a colleague over drinks. I went home to my apartment in Silver Lake, changed into a faded crew neck from grad school, and powered up my laptop. There's a strange stillness that follows a deep betrayal, not hollow, but razor-edged, like the silence before lightning hits. That was where I found myself. Discovering the patent hadn't been a win. Not yet. It was a spark. Small, fragile, but just enough to illuminate the road ahead. So I started walking. I leased private server space under an obscure shell billing account. A clean Ubuntu instance. I named the container quietbuild_alpha. It felt less like a joke, more like a statement. After layering in security hardening and custom encryption, I got to work. I rewrote the adaptive processing engine from scratch. No borrowed code. No legacy scaffolding. Just clean, precise modules built to flex across decentralized healthcare systems. I'd learned from every limitation of the first build, every failure logged at 2 a.m., every unplanned rollback, every fix that had been rushed to meet some arbitrary deadline. This time, it was mine again. Untouched. Smarter. Lighter. Each function I wrote was a response. Not to please, not to perform, but to reclaim. Every ignored suggestion, every team lead who had overridden my code without reading it, fuel. And then the email came. Subject line: confidential inquiry, compatibility review. I nearly archived it. But the sender gave me pause. Ariana Hale, CTO, Circuvera Diagnostics. A small but rapidly rising company based in Seattle, real-time neuroimaging, AI-based treatment mapping. I'd heard the name at a conference but never given it much thought. The message was short. We're surveying modular infrastructure options. Our IP crawl picked up elements that resemble your 2019 prototype. Would you be open to a brief discussion? No legalese. No assumptions. Just interest. They'd found traces of me in version histories, abandoned repos, digital breadcrumbs I hadn't meant to leave. But they had followed them not to threaten, but to understand. I closed the email and looked back at the terminal. Quiet build_alpha was still live. Processes stable. Logs clean. No panic. No fear. Just focus. And for the first time in months, I wasn't working in reaction. I was building with intent. That's when I realized I wasn't Nora Winslow, a staff engineer waiting for recognition. I was Nora Winslow, the creator of a system no one could rewrite out of existence. Trust doesn't always bloom from history. Sometimes it's born from how someone sees your work, not as a product, but as an extension of who you are. Ariana Hale didn't send a contract or a calendar invite. She sent a signal. And this time, I was listening. I blinked as I entered her workspace. Sleek glass walls, no clutter, just a single standing desk and a blackboard layered with notes and neural flow diagrams. The skyline of downtown Seattle framed the window behind her. Ariana Hale gestured to the chair opposite hers and said plainly, "Show me." I passed her a small, encrypted SSD without saying much. She inserted it, launched her terminal, and began navigating the contents with the effortless command of someone who lives in code. I sat down, still and composed on the outside, but my knee bounced under the table. I didn't know what reaction I expected: doubt, polite distance, maybe a quick thank you and a legal disclaimer. Not this. Ariana didn't blink. She didn't react outwardly at all. She scrolled. Faster. Deeper. Through the folder tree. Through my commits. Through the pipeline diagrams and system snapshots. She paused near the authentication modules. "These tag notes," she said, quietly. "They're yours." I nodded. Wrote every piece. She kept digging. It wasn't just review now, it was recognition. Like someone hearing a song they didn't realize they remembered. Something about her posture shifted. Focus turned to understanding. At last, she leaned back slightly. This is the core behind Orion's latest telemetry suite. They've rebranded it as native tech. They did, I replied. Changed module names. Removed author signatures. Launched it with a new UI shell. Her lips tightened, not with surprise, but with clarity. Of course. That was all she said. She didn't need more. She saw enough to know what had happened and who had done it. For the first time in years, the tension between my ribs softened. I hadn't realized how long I'd been holding my breath. "It's still registered under me," I said, voice quieter now. "Filed before any employment contract. No handover. No rights assigned." I checked. Ariana closed the laptop softly, as if she were sealing a secret. She was silent for several seconds. Then she looked at me, calm and deliberate. "We'll make sure they pay attention." Quietly. Thoroughly. Not with headlines, but with precision. She wasn't offering payback. She was offering resolution. Measured. Strategic. Like stitching a wound or planning a siege. I didn't cry. I didn't grin. But I exhaled. She didn't see me as a rogue engineer or a disgruntled worker. She saw what I'd been all along, a builder whose blueprint had been stolen. It didn't take long. That evening, I checked my inbox. New message. Subject: urgent. Security alert. Unauthorized access reported. Coffee sat untouched beside my keyboard. The lights from Sunset Boulevard bled into the room. I clicked. It wasn't a personal message. It had been sent company-wide. Every inbox at Orion. Every division. Every Slack channel. Nora Winslow, internal breach suspect. Framed in PR-polished HR language. We are investigating a significant incident involving attempted replication of restricted system architecture. Evidence points to a recently separated employee. Separated. I hadn't quit. They had preemptively erased me. I opened my company Slack, deactivated. Tried my email, bounced. VPN locked. Admin console, access denied. It was as if I had never existed. An hour later, the media release hit the wire. Orion Systems confirms mitigation of a cyber threat involving internal misuse of proprietary frameworks. They buried my legacy under a headline. But I had the original blueprint. And this time, I wasn't building for them. Potential breach involving distribution of classified architecture components. The identified individual is no longer employed by Orion Systems. No name listed. But they didn't have to spell it out. By midday, someone had leaked a sanitized version of the internal memo to Signal Frame, a popular tech insider blog. The post included my initials, job title, and the last 3 enterprise-level projects I'd led. They painted me as both invisible and dangerous, a ghost with a grudge. I stared at the article. My jaw clenched. No tears. No shouting. Just a creeping chill, like steel pressed against skin. Truth didn't matter. That I designed their core infrastructure line by line. That the patent existed in public record with my name on it. They moved faster. Dirtier. Louder. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I walked to the closet and retrieved an old USB drive, the kind I hadn't used since my early freelance days. Plugged it into my personal machine. Inside, the final alpha build of PulseLayer version 1.0. Complete with source logs, commit IDs, and comment chains. All traceable to me. Every keystroke, every refactor. But the blockouts still burned. They'd wiped me from their system. Except for what they missed. Or so I thought. That night, an encrypted message slipped into my Proton Mail inbox. From newdrift432@mail.com. Subject: still breathing. Body: you still have backup route. Original creds. Use them. Quietly. I stared at the screen. Then I opened a terminal. Fingers hovered. One breath. Logged in. The prompt blinked, then accepted the string. Access level. Root. User: Winslow, Orion Infra Tools Repository Vault. Access restored. Unfiltered. Unredacted. I didn't pounce. I didn't sabotage. I watched. Sometimes justice isn't loud. It's clinical. Documented. Filed with tracking numbers. At 6:08 a.m., a message reached the inboxes of Orion's executive board. Subject: immediate attention required. Misappropriation of patent number 1076432. Sender: Legal Office, Circuvera Diagnostics. Filed April 8, 2019. Inventor: Nora J. Winslow. Rights holder: individual active. I didn't send it. Ariana Hale did. And the weight of Circuvera's legal and IP enforcement division followed. No bluster. No press releases. Just targeted pressure applied exactly where it hurt. The email included Attachment A, the original USPTO filing, complete with my name, digital signature, and a notarized timestamp. Attachment B, Full commit history from PulseLayer's private repo, complete with logs linked to my IP and access credentials, some with annotations from Orion's own CTO. Attachment C. Archived Slack logs. A thread from 2020. I'd forgotten it existed. In it, a team lead wrote, "Nora's load balancer script is a beast. Just repackage it, strip the meta, and no one will trace it." But the knockout came in the final exhibit. A screen recording Zoom, dated April 2019. The camera showed a product strategy session. I wasn't in it, but my code was. An engineer walked the group through my load balancing engine. Shared screen. Debug console open. And there, top right corner, my initials in the repo watermark. That was the moment I knew they wouldn't just lose face. They'd lose leverage. And I'd finally get mine back. Graham leaned back in a leather swivel chair, tossing a smug glance at an associate brand lead. She never signed anything over. Big deal. We're the ones scaling this. She should be grateful. The transcription was damning. The audio? Crystal clear. His smugness practically echoed off the office walls. By 8:45 a.m., Orion's internal communication channels lit up like a server breach alert. A junior engineer I had once mentored messaged me directly. They're spiraling. Legal's camped in DevOps. Directors pulled into back-to-back stand-ups. I didn't write back. By 10:02, I was trending on tech Twitter. By 11:30, Circuvera issued a public position. We support authentic innovation and honor intellectual ownership. Legal measures are underway. They didn't include my name. They didn't have to. It was already on the patent. On every commit. On the digital trail, they assumed I'd left buried. They thought I'd moved on. Orion started scrubbing their web presence in a panic. Dev blog articles vanished. GitHub access turned private. A white paper from 2021 suddenly became unavailable. Even a podcast clip featuring Graham gloating, "Our system optimization module evolved from in-house R&D over several years," was quietly removed. Site returned to 404. Their narrative, once airtight, now unraveled thread by thread. But I wasn't cheering. This wasn't revenge porn for coders. It was reclamation. Not vindictive fire. Just documentation. The truth doesn't always crash into the courtroom in some big finale. Sometimes it leaks line by line, until even the most engineered fiction can't hold up against sunlight. By Thursday, the lawsuit became public record. Tech reporters were the first on it. By noon, the majors followed. Headlines burst across feeds. Orion accused in $120 million IP misappropriation suit. Whistleblower code exposes major medtech firm in landmark case. Who really engineered PulseLayer? Inside the legal war for medical AI ownership. I read the feeds from a borrowed desk in Circuvera's pop-up litigation center, a converted startup loft Ariana jokingly called Mission Control. Dry erase boards full of flowcharts, wall-to-wall legal printouts, and a high-octane espresso setup humming beside my laptop. Matt, Circuvera's VP of Strategic Ops, ex-IBM, clipboard always in hand, peeked over my shoulder. "You're everywhere," he muttered. I shrugged. Wasn't my goal. He raised a brow. "Sure. And I guess PulseLayer coded itself too, huh?" But the true pivot came at 10:21 a.m. when Everwell Health Partners, one of the 5 largest medical systems in the U.S., quietly updated their homepage. No dramatic press release. Just a simple note: "We're proud to partner with Circuvera in our pursuit of transparent, ethical diagnostics." That was the tremor before the landslide. I hit refresh on my inbox. New message. From Ariana. Subject line: "Check CNBC." I clicked. Live broadcast. There he was, Graham, on national television, seated stiffly in front of a poorly arranged bookshelf, wearing a suit that looked 1 size too big and 3 days too old. The Chiron read, "The intellectual property crisis shaking up medtech." The screen was split. On the left, B-roll from a keynote I'd delivered 3 years ago, me in sharp lighting, presenting PulseLayer's pilot results. On the right, Graham, blinking rapidly, trying to sell sincerity through a script. His voice was tight. Orion Systems has always respected its engineers. But the world wasn't buying it anymore. We are dismayed by these accusations. Orion Systems considers itself the victim of miscommunication, not misconduct. Graham's voice didn't waver. Mine did, internally, because his statement triggered a memory buried beneath years of overtime and discarded feedback forms. A cramped office kitchen on the second floor, back when we were just a dozen people and the coffee machine, still hissed like a teapot. Graham had handed me a slice of grocery store cake with my name spelled wrong in frosting. "If you keep building like this, Nora," he'd said, "your name's going to be on the plaque in the lobby." Now, he couldn't even say it aloud on television. My phone buzzed. Encrypted inbox. Same anonymous address as before. This time, no words, just a screenshot. Internal email chain. Subject: Legal Containment Strategy. From Graham L. Message: she's winning the optics. Begin erasure protocols. Anything tagged prior to 2019, wipe it. Chat logs. Docs. Git trails. Clean sweep. I leaned back slowly, nausea rising, not from fear, but from a sharper sting, knowing that the man who once called me family during a quarterly review was now coordinating my deletion like a bad entry on a spreadsheet. Across the room, Matt glanced up from a call. "They're in full scramble mode," he said. "Pulling repos faster than we can mirror them." I barely nodded. On my screen, the CNBC feed cut to commercial, Graham's frozen expression mid-sentence. I should have felt triumphant. Part of me did. But layered beneath the sense of justice, deeper than any public win, was mourning. Mourning for the younger version of me who believed effort meant something. Who thought loyalty would eventually speak louder than titles. Who stayed late thinking maybe, just maybe, doing the work was enough. That Nora was gone. In her place sat someone who had learned to weaponize truth. Not with volume or chaos. With timestamps. With signatures. With code no one could deny. Collapse doesn't always sound like an explosion. Sometimes, it's paper rustling in conference rooms and the echo of empty chairs. By the end of week 3, Orion Systems was crumbling from the inside out. Over 2/3 of their medical partners had paused or terminated contracts. 2 nationally recognized hospital chains had publicly committed to new partnerships with Circuvera. Inside Orion, the usual confidence dissolved into whispered strategy huddles and locked-door reviews. But it didn't stop there. Soon, the leaks began. Jira logs, private Slack exchanges, even internal audit reports started surfacing across Reddit and niche cybersecurity forums. Line by line, the myth of their innovation unraveled. But the fatal hit? Money. 2 major investment firms, Bayshore Equity and Horizon Point Ventures, cut ties within 48 hours of each other. Bayshore's press release didn't waste breath. "We are re-examining our stake in Orion Systems due to unresolved questions concerning unauthorized use of protected software and concerning governance patterns." Not rage. Just vacuum. The funding oxygen gone. That same morning, Matt pinged me. "Check their latest SEC filing." I did. And there it was, deep in the document. Effective immediately, Graham Layton has been removed from his position as Chief Innovation Officer. Reason cited: failure to disclose existing legal vulnerabilities related to core intellectual property assets. No apology. But it was the closest thing to accountability the public would ever see. Even the tech blogs didn't bother spinning it. Orion CTO ousted as IP firestorm deepens, read the morning headline on CircuitLine. Within the hour, CNBC ran a full segment, from industry pioneer to legal risk, inside the fall of Orion Systems. My inbox lit up like a New Year's sky. Former teammates, interns I hadn't spoken to in years, even a few longtime skeptics reached out. Some with congratulations, others with guilt. One message, brief but cutting, came from a past product strategist. "You kept the company alive." I should have said it sooner. But the message that hit hardest wasn't a DM, it was public. Jared Bloom, one of Orion's founding developers, posted a message on LinkedIn. The same guy who used to skip launch parties in favor of bug fixing in that ratty gray hoodie. I saw Nora build that platform from scratch. She didn't get pushed out for poor performance. She got pushed out for being too quiet about her value. What happened to her wasn't just unfair. It was theft. And now the receipts are out there. Over 13,000 likes in less than a day. I didn't reply. I didn't boost it. Instead, I zipped my carry-on and boarded a flight to San Diego for the TechMed Global Summit, the biggest gathering in the health tech calendar. Thanks to Circuvera's rapid ascent, Buzz followed us like a spotlight. Ariana insisted I take the stage. I'm not a keynote speaker, I told her. You are now, she replied. They tried to erase your name. Let's make it unforgettable. That night, I sat in my hotel room, high above the harbor, awake. No slide deck. No talking points. Just a small, matte black USB stick in my palm. The label read, proof_origin_NW. Inside? Every file they thought I'd deleted. Signed patent documents, commit trails, old architecture sketches, audio memos I recorded while debugging ICU response systems in 2018. A silent, time-stamped rebuttal to every lie. The next morning, beneath the TechMed banner, I walked onto the stage. The hall was full. Investors, CTOs, journalists, and somewhere in the crowd, people still pretending I'd never existed. I plugged in the USB, took a breath, and didn't start with anger. I started with a hospital room. 5 years ago, I said, I filed a provisional patent while sitting beside my father's bed. I wasn't a founder. I wasn't even in management. Just an engineer trying to protect the one thing no one could take, my work. I paused. They said the vision came from the top. But the framework, the core logic, that came from here. I tapped my temple. And here. I tapped the USB. Silence. Not empty, engaged. I call this my founder's proof, I continued. Not because I started a company. Because I finally reclaimed credit for the one thing no PR team could rewrite, my name. Then, they stood. All of them. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I felt like I had arrived. Later that evening, I walked into the TechMed Innovation Gala. And there he was. Graham Layton. The man who once clipped my wings and called it business. Standing under a chandelier that seemed far too extravagant for someone used to hiding behind policy memos. His posture hadn't changed, but the sheen was gone. Or maybe it had never been real, just the reflected glow of others' work. He spotted me, lifted a glass. Nora, he said, as if we were old friends. You won. I tilted my head. Calm. Distant. This wasn't a competition, I said. He looked around, at the Circuvera signage, at badges with my name on them. Then, softer. I misjudged you. I should have listened. I took a sip from my glass. You didn't misjudge. You chose. He fell quiet. But behind me, a voice broke the moment. Young. Nervous. Are you really? I turned. She clutched a notebook and wore a badge with her name half-flipped. Wide-eyed. Hopeful. She held a notebook, hands trembling slightly. Then, loud enough for a few nearby to hear, she asked, Wait, is he the one who claimed your system and mocked you when you asked for a raise? Graham's expression froze. Nearby conversations paused. Heads turned. A quiet ripple moved through the room. Without a word, he turned and walked out. I didn't stop him. I had a stage to reach. 10 minutes later, I stepped into the same spotlight where Graham once accepted an award based on my architecture. Only now it was my name on the program. This isn't about revenge, I said, voice steady. It's about restoration. About reclaiming what they tried to overwrite. I held up the black USB I'd carried through it all. This is evidence. But you don't need a flash drive to matter. Just keep building. Keep knowing your worth, especially when others pretend not to see it. Thank you for following this journey. If it spoke to you, Drop a comment below. Share it with someone who needs to remember their strength. And subscribe for more stories where truth finds its voice.